pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay. Okay, we have roll call members. All the committee is here tonight with the exception of Courtney and Leah, who are absent with notice this evening. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Cliff, second by Sandy. Second by Sandy with support. The agenda is accepted. First item on the agenda was the review of the May 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. I had no updates or changes to it. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from May 16th? Motion by Tom, support by Mark. The meeting minutes are approved. I'd like to open the planning commission up for public comment at this time for anything that's not on the agenda. Patrick? Nothing. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close public comment, and then we're going to move into unfinished business, which there's none. And we're going to get into new business now, which is the zoning text amendment ZTA 24-004. The public hearing considered a proposed zoning text amendment of the Sullivan Township Municipal Code, Chapter 30 zoning ordinance. This amendment would revise the requirement that a new building or structure be situated on a lot or parcel that abuts or adjoins a public street or road, section 30.792. ZTA would allow a new building or structure to also be constructed on parcels accessed by an exclusive access driveway or a private shared driveway as permitted under Chapter 10 Development Standards, sections 10-484 and 10-485 of the Municipal Code. The amendment also clarifies and refines the definitions and measurements of lot widths and yards, sections 30-5 and 30-18 or 30-182. With that said, I'd like to ask our planning. It died. So, given the complexity of this this amendment, this is I'd like Scott to run us through just to make sure everything's got a
Yeah.
good grasp with, because it's not
Before we have the public comment, I'll give a little presentation on what we're doing so that everybody here knows when they're commenting. So yes, like you had mentioned, this the majority of the proposed zoning text amendment is to make our zoning ordinance compatible with the 2019 Chapter 10, which is development regulations ordinance that was passed by the township board, that allows shared private driveways and exclusive access easements on properties. So currently our code under section 30-792 would only allow a new property if it abutted a public roadway. So there was no ability to split a parcel if you didn't have enough frontage on a public roadway. The reason this originally was a concern is because the township does not allow private roadways, and the county has started to restrict public roadways. So it was very hard for people to split their parcels of land. So in 2019, I'm not sure who brought this forward, but your attorney and more than likely your zoning administrator created a police power ordinance or an amendment to the police power ordinance that would allow lots to be split using an exclusive access easement. You could split one time without having public road frontage and up to 3 times with a shared driveway agreement in place. So, again, this is a pretty common ordinance. I've seen this in, the other municipalities that I work in also. It allows larger pieces of property to split off like the back piece of the property so that most of the time you see it that they want to either sell it to a family, provide it to a family member or a family to live on the property, or if they're downsizing because they're getting older, which most of us are, hopefully. So we all wish to get older. So that's why that went into place. But when I was working with that, I had to review the definitions of lot width. And with that, you didn't have a definition of lot width. All you did was refer to the section 3182B8, which was how to measure lot width. So I added a definition of lot width, which was the horizontal distance between side property lines. It's a pretty common definition of lot widths that you see everywhere. And then when I got into reading how they measured the lot width, it needed clarification. The existing definition was, if you took it literally, was almost impossible to have a lot that you could measure the perpendicular distance between. You had to have both lot lines have a perpendicular line that could go between them. And as we know, lot lines that diverge, you would never have a perpendicular line that could hit both properties. So it was a flawed or errored way to measure a lot width. Again, what was more than likely happening in the past is you took the intent of that, which is basically a straight line at some point between the two side property lines. You didn't really have to be perpendicular at the side property lines, and you measured your lot width. And the other error that was in that measurement is that the measurement was at the building line also. So if you did have a parcel that you were trying to do a lot split on, there was no way to measure the lot width because you don't have a building line on there because you don't have a building on the lot. So I changed a few things on the definitions or on how to measure the lot line to make it, instead of the building line, the front setback line is where you would measure that. And then instead of perpendicular to both side lot lines, it's a line parallel to the front lot line between both lot lines. Again, that definition's not perfect. You're not always going to be able to have a parallel line to the front lot line, but the intent is that it be mostly parallel to the front property line. And you also have a definition of how to measure a curved section at a front lot fronting a curved section of the roadway. And I did provide you with an additional edit. On that item B, it should be a lot fronting a curved section of the roadway or front property line. So that allows you to have a curved front property line still that you could measure a lot width on. So, and then I had to add in a section C to that measurement of lot width, because with these, if you do use this exclusive access easement or a roadway, you might not have you won't have a road that you're fronting, so it needs to be a lot without street frontage. And how would you measure the lot width on a lot that doesn't have street frontage, which is what we are creating with these this access easement and the shared driveway requirement. So those are the three things in the lot width that have that had to change due to this regulation. The other item that I changed was the definition of front yard, rear yard, and side yard to eliminate the word driveway and exclusive easement line, and just create it so that basically it means an open unoccupied space on the same lot with the principal structure situated between the side, this is this side yard, side line of the structure and the adjacent sideline nearest to the public or private street right-of-way line or the side lot line. I got rid of the driveway and the exclusive easement. And that's the reason I did that is because if you imagine you use the shared driveway, you have a 50-acre parcel and you put a shared driveway right in the middle of the parcel, where am I supposed to take my side property lines from? And in reality, only 3 houses are going to use that shared driveway. It's a driveway. We don't usually require setbacks from a driveway. So we don't require a setback from your own personal driveway. So if you have one that cuts through your lot, I don't think we need to have a required setback from that driveway either. So that's why I changed the definition of all 3 of those to eliminate the driveway and the exclusive easement language. It just makes it easier to enact the code. Do you have any questions on, so I did provide you with a staff report that explains some of the stuff. I know you did receive a letter from the attorney, a confidential letter from the attorney explaining some of the reasoning why he believes it would be beneficial to allow this amendment. And this, again, this amendment was brought to you by the township board from their June 4th, 2024 meeting. Also, they directed staff to amend the code so it complies with the chapter 10 development standards that were prepared in 2019.
Okay, Scott, thank you. I'd like to open up for public comment on this. Sure, if you'd like to use does the microphone work?
Did it stay on? No light. It's
No.
dead too.
Instead,
No, I think that one died too.
Just leave this one up here. My name is Jeff Spike. I live at 6310 Workner Road. For longtime Sylvan residents, excuse me, it's the old Earl Grebe farm. I don't know if any of you were familiar with Earl Grebe. We bought the south, he owned 50 acres on the northwest corner of Workner Road, south of the roundabout, south of Ivy Road before you get to Sibley. So my wife and I bought that about a decade ago. We also own another parcel that's adjacent to that. That's the original Earl Grebe farm, and we built a house on the back. So we currently own 38 acres there. I'm here for 2 main reasons. One, self-representation. For our farm, we have 2 young boys, and I'd like to split my property off to be able to give them 2 pieces of that property. Workner Road, if you've been down that section when they closed 52, I think everybody in this entire county went through down that road for a month or so. Believe it or not, that road is 55 miles an hour. So even though I have 1,320 feet of frontage along that road, I have to have 660 feet of visibility because of the 55-mile-an-hour road, which really limits where I can get driveway access, even though I have a tremendous amount of frontage on that road. Really limits how I can divide up my property. And I'd like to be able to split that. And I think this is a responsible way to do, I hate to use the word development, but allow people to split their properties without having tract homes come in and things of that nature. The other reason I'm here is for Mr. and Mrs. Galvin that are in the audience as well tonight. I'm also a builder locally, and I work with a number of clients that have the same situation that I do. They have a large piece of property it's either landlocked or they can't get access because of the rolling nature of our properties around here. And so I run into this probably in the last year, 3 or 4 times just in the township here. And I think that it would really allow people to do what they want with their property without mass development. Some other additional items that I wanted to bring up is, and I think Scott did a good job tonight explaining it, and maybe I just didn't ask the right questions, but tonight I printed off from Municipal Code, section 10-485, shared private driveways. And it's in our code, but we can't use it, which makes absolutely no sense to me as a taxpaying resident. And I've never really been given a good explanation as to why that is, but here we are tonight. And I was told by the previous zoning administrator that I could use this, and I didn't split my property. And now I'm wishing that I had done it at the time, because now it seems like there's a lot of turmoil with this. But as a resident, I'm not an attorney by any means. I'm a carpenter by trade, but I look at this and this shared driveway ordinance, and it seems to me as a taxpaying resident that it really opens us up to a lot of liability. That we have this in our ordinance. We've told people they can use it. We have emails from zoning administrators that we can use this, and now we're saying we can't use it, but we have to amend things so that we can use it. So in closing, I just want to say I would encourage the commission to adopt what Mr. Pacheco has come up with for these amendments, if you will, to make the language more clear. I think it's a responsible and conservative development approach. And I think it limits the township's future financial exposure in this particular problem that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make comment?
Hello,
Your name, please?
I'm Gary Galvin, my wife Doris Galvin. We live on 19495 Sibley Road, just west of the wetlands past Letts Creek, the dirt part of Sibley Road. I've worked at the Chelsea High School for the past 11 years, and Doris owns and operates her own business in downtown Chelsea. We purchased the property, 25 acres, in 1994, and we moved into the house in 1997. We moved from south of Jackson. We wanted to live near the city of Chelsea because of the schools. Our children both went to school there, and we found a perfect location, just about a half a mile west of the city limits. A mile and a half from downtown, 2 miles from school, and the 25 acres we bought, we pastured and we rode our horses on it. Now we have 2 horses, and we'd like to put the rest of the property to better use. Like Scott said, a lot of people buy property 30 years ago and think that maybe their children will build on the property. Ours didn't. They both have their own homes and they're not out back of the house. So we're considering options, like Jess said, doing some splits of maybe 5-acre lots, which would require a shared driveway. Our road frontage is 253 feet, but the lot depth is 1,700 feet. It's got a couple dog legs in it. It abuts the wetlands and it's very near to the city and all its amenities. So the property is hilly, and with the wetlands, it's not that conducive to acreage farming. We've also got 2 big ass gas pipelines run through the middle of it. And let's see, we'd like to investigate the potential and develop it in a way that's good for the communities, the families that would choose to live here, and for us. We are proponents of including private shared driveways as part of the zoning for Sylvan Township. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make for Patrick? I knew you couldn't resist, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick Ziske, Sylvan Township resident. I'll just be brief. Mr. Spike exhaustively covered a lot of the reasons why this is a good idea. And I'm gonna echo one of them that I was already planning to mention. Basically, out of all the ordinances that we've done, we look at things like the solar ordinance and we divided it into two pieces. You know, the large scale solar versus the residential on-premise use. And to me, this is an example of something that is more conducive to small scale implementation for, well, you know, up to only 3 lots, basically. And I think that those all ought to be favored because they tend to support family stability and economic viability for the landowner without causing a risk of enabling high density, large scale development, right? 3 lots, it helps the people stay in Sylvan Township with their family or their friends and helps them financially. So that's what I think is, I think a lot of the things that we've done in this township, by the way, that we're worried about actually come down to a matter of scale. That's why I mentioned the solar ordinance, because we divided that into 2 pieces. Small scale, I think we should permit all kinds of stuff. Thank you.
All right, Patrick, thank you. Is there any other public comment at this time? Okay, I'm gonna close public comment for Scott.
Yeah, I'd just like to make sure that everybody's clear that this ordinance, even though it allows us to use the chapter 10 shared driveway regulations and access easement, doesn't change the Land Division Act requirements or that a new lot that is created would need to meet the minimum lot size and minimum lot width requirements of the code.
Yeah, no, I personally, I view this more as a cleanup activity. It's getting rid of conflicts, right? I don't see this as a, so from a standards of review perspective, though, what I'd like to do is just, you know, kind of walk through the kind of these kind of key points I've helped lay out for us as we look at the drafting text amendment. It focuses on the future growth and development. The utility infrastructure available is really not applicable. I guess one here is important is though it protects the integrity of the existing and future residential areas and develop future residential areas of character and density consistent with the township's goal of preserving its rural character. I mean, we already have the shared driveway ordinance, you just really can't use it. So it's which is like kind of a net effect.
I can explain.
You want to answer that?
I can explain. So this happens a lot in municipal government. So you have police power ordinances and then you have your zoning ordinance. All your ordinances, one ordinance can't override another ordinance. So they created a regulation and put it in a police power ordinance, but that ordinance can't override the zoning ordinance. So when you made that change, you needed to amend your zoning ordinance at the same time. So they didn't amend the zoning ordinance. So section 37.8.2 still said to create a new lot, you needed to abut a public roadway. So there was no way for me to sign off on a land division that didn't abut a private roadway, because under the zoning ordinance, that's required. And under the Land Division Act, your future divisions need to meet your zoning requirements. Not in the past. This only was created in 2019. So in the past, there were no regulations. We became a township, you know, and created our zoning ordinances in the 70s. So up until that point, who knows when we put in the portion that says a new lot needs to abut a public roadway. Up until 1993, Sylvan Township allowed private roadways. So the codes are constantly changing. So depending on when the shared driveway was created, it was more than likely legal unless it was created between 2019 and today. Then there could have been some problems, but it's going to be corrected, hopefully, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, Scott. So as we look through the some of the other standards, that just says the seeks the development of housing types that are of high quality in terms of design and construction and are appropriate in terms of the township's rural preservation and growth management objectives. I think this helps generally in that area also. I think it's a positive. The next one is, new residential development will be compatible with existing residence terms of density, lot size, and building types in an area where of change in density is planned or adjacent to an established residential area density, graduation buffer areas and natural features should be used to create gradual transition. I mean, I think in this case, it's probably really not applicable. It's given the small size of the splits from a standards of review perspective. So this was also reviewed by Mr. Thalvin too, correct? And he's put his blessing approval on it. Okay.
So the items you just read off are goals and objectives and
Yep.
strategies of the master plan. When you're
Yep.
approving a zoning text amendment, your ordinance currently doesn't have any standards in place,
All right.
discretionary standards. So under best practices, the way you approve zoning text amendments is that they're compatible with your master plan and they protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. So those are the items that I'm trying to make the findings with.
Yeah,
listing
no, I
out
understand.
those
That's
goals
kind of
and
why
those
we went
standards.
through and read those points.
Yep.
I think they lay well with the proposed amendment, so thank you for that, Scott. Tom, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? No? You're good with it. Cliff, how about you?
No, I initially had some questions about the draft we got at the meeting, clarified those. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you have any questions or comments? No, Sandy?
I'm
You?
good.
You're good, okay. So we have an example, we have a approval motion here. Let me just read it out loud. Planning Commission motion to recommend
Approval.
proposed zoning text amendment ZTA 24-004 to amend the zoning regulations, chapter 30 zoning, require building or structure to be on a lot or parcels which adjoins a public street or public road by also allowing them to be on parcels accessed by excluding access driveway sections 10-484 or private shared driveway section 10-485. This amendment also would require amendments to the definition of how the lot and width is measured and the cleanup of the definition of the yards. It needs a period there. Planning Commission recommends of the proposed zoning text amendment because, as discussed at tonight's Planning Commission meeting and is presented in the Planning Commission staff report, the zoning amendments comply with the master plan and will preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the community by allowing appropriate development of existing sites within the community. Proposed amendments are intended to allow appropriate development of existing parcels as long as all zoning regulations can be met. So that is the example motion. Thank you, Mr. Pacheco, for that. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Tom,
Second,
second by Cliff. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Motion,
I would just clarify that you're approving with the amendments that were on.
correct. Yeah, so for the record, the amendments are the ones with slight changes for tonight's meeting, for the meeting minutes. Okay, so the motion is approved. All right. Next item on the agenda is comments, concerns of the Planning Commission members. Sandy?
I do. So Scott, where are we with these dark sky ordinance?
I haven't heard from the people. That's the last. When I believe they were here at one of our.
Well, they came, remember, there was an email exchange because I asked somebody, whatever happened to this? Because some students were supposed to write it. And then
Oh, you're right, I forgot. about
somebody
that.
put us in contact with
Should
the
say-
faculty person that was overseeing that, and they had tried to get in contact with you right when you came, right when you showed up.
I haven't prioritized any zoning text amendments that are not directly required or recommended to me by the township board. after the November 2nd election, we will be having a joint meeting and we will prioritize, I have a list of about 25 zoning amendments that will need to be done. And if you wanted them all done at one time, you know, it would probably a consultant you could hire $250,000 or so, they would do them. Or we can prioritize them and I can do them as we move forward.
Okay,
But yeah, so the ones that I'm moving forward on are the ones that are being, directed by the township board to move forward. So that's why I got this one
sure.
for you tonight in front of you, is because on June 4th, I was directed by the board.
So you're gonna take that back to the board, Sandy?
Sure.
Anything else you'd like to table?
Nope, that's it.
Mhm. Cliff, you good? Tom? You're good? Is there any updates on the master plan review meeting? I haven't heard of anything.
The consultant was trying to create a joint meeting to have everybody review the plan at the same time. I believe they've tried multiple dates and nobody can ever meet, so they're just going to bring it forward to the planning commission for review.
I thought we had dates. I thought we actually had dates and like a day before we canceled.
He
Like
did
three-
have a date.
Like 3 different times.
No, it was at one time and you actually had a emergency evacuation of this building due to a hazmat situation. Actually a few hours before it was
Yeah.
supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So, but.
No, I recall
so
that.
What's going to happen is they're just going to bring it forward to the township, the planning commission. There's no need, there's no requirement in state law that it be brought to, a joint work session of the township board and planning commission. They were just trying to do that to get everybody in the room at the same time so they could discuss them. What more than likely they'll do is they'll bring it to, as required by law, they'd bring it to the planning commission for review. The planning commission would review it and make recommendations if they have them. If they can make those recommendations at the meeting, they can make the recommendations and then also, make the recommendation to the township board to distribute the amendments to the master plan. And then, once they get a recommendation to distribute the amendments, then it goes to the township board. The township board makes the approval to distribute the amendments. That starts the 42-day review period for the interested agencies. The interested agencies have 42 days to review the amendments and get comments back. At the end of that comment period, the planning consultant would usually address any comments received, bring any amendments at that point to the planning commission that from those attachments and hold a public hearing for public comment on the amendments. Once they have that public hearing and they receive public comment, they can either address the public comments at the public hearing, or you would continue the public hearing to another date to allow the planning consultant to address the public comment. They bring it back to the planning commission with the comments addressed, and then you make a recommendation to either move the master plan amendments forward. That goes to the township board, and the township board makes the final determination on the amendments to the master plan. Once they approve the amendments, then it gets distributed again to the interested agencies. So it's still quite a time consuming ways off, because we haven't even got to the notice periods where people have notice to review the amendments. So usually what would happen is you would have the public outreach, your staff or your planning consultant would create the amendments based on that public outreach. and then bring it to the planning commission for review. Once the planning commission was okay with that, then it would go to the interested agencies 42 days, and then there's a public hearing process where the public then speaks on that.
Yeah, because I got 2 pages of notes, right?
Yeah.
Based upon what I read.
And you can submit those to them at any point. But they're going to more than likely be coming to the August 15th meeting, now, because they can't, it's not worthwhile to keep continuing because they can't get forums together or anything like that. So they're just gonna bring
mean,
it.
can they
through
get
the
a
regular process.
Can it get a partial quorum? I mean, honestly, I haven't seen
I
what I
don't think
think
it's,
is great
that's
effort.
not needed.
I don't know, it's always good to hear other people's perspective though, right?
Well, both of those bodies will.
No, I
have their
understand that, but-
perspective heard before the project gets, distributed to the interested agencies, because that's the state law requirement, is that it gets reviewed by the planning commission. Planning commission makes their review and recommendation, then it goes to the township board, prior to it being distributed to the interested agencies, which are all your adjoining neighbors, your railroads, the airports, and any quasi-governmental agencies for the 42-day review. And then there's a 30-day notice or a 15-day notice for a public hearing after that review is done. So, this additional work session was just an additional work session to get everybody in the room at the same time. I think it's fine just to move it forward, and get it. I mean, it's not, I read it, it's 10 pages. It's not a very extensive amendment to the master plan. So what they're proposing. So, you will have time to make all your comments on it and get all those comments addressed. And then, any amendments that are created because of those comments will then go to the township board. And then they'll be able to review all those comments. So we'll just be at separate meetings that you guys are doing those.
Hmm.
I think it's just too hard. I mean, we have 5 commissioners here out of 7. It's hard to get everybody together. It's not like we're getting woo-hoo dollars to come to these meetings.
I figured out it's worth $1.50 an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
No, actually it is, if that.
I know. I totally understand.
So I'm out the month of October, so.
So I sent Sarah an email this morning because I just got an email that said we're just gonna move it forward. Planning commission asked her if she could be at the August. So, and that August 15th meeting would be to address those amendments that you received 2 months ago.
No, I have to revisit them, but at least I got notes, so.
Yeah, and hopefully she'll have a staff report with those amendments that explains, the process that she did to get to those, plus the process moving forward after those. So,
Personally, I was not impressed with what I read, so. In any case, that was my comment. Cliff, anything you want to add?
Nothing additional.
Tom? We have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Tom, seconded by me. Meeting is closed at 7:40. Yeah.
If there are last minute changes to the text that was being reviewed, have at least copies out here, because otherwise, only
Oh.
one comment on the thing is like, I'm sure those last minute changes are fine, right? But,
yeah, they're,
well, they don't. hopefully for now-
No, it's fair, it's fair feedback, so that's,
That's the master plan. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's fair feedback.
What's that about?
So we had some, people who live in the area who